Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. If you have a question during this meeting, you cannot unmute yourself. You raise your hand, and then you'll be selected to make your comments. And the other thing here, there was I guess a thought that there might be some discussion on 19 Peggotty Beach Road, but we're not going to discuss 19 Peggotty Beach Road this evening. This is something that's ongoing that we probably need to discuss outside of a meeting to get everything organized, and then we can bring that to a public meeting. So 19 Peggotty will not be discussed this evening. Does anybody have anything they want to add or change on the agenda? At the end of the meeting, maybe I'll just spend a minute and update some of the folks on where we're getting with trails and things like that. Thanks everybody for being here this evening.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as written, and we'll discuss trails and the parking at the end, maybe.
Okay. Thank you, Penny. Do I have a second?
Second, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Frank, just real quick, call to order and roll call.
Yep. So, is Richard on?
No.
Okay. Doug?
Here.
Thank you. Penny?
Yeah.
Jen?
Here.
Andy?
Here.
And Brendan? Is Brendan on?
Here.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. So we've got, we're missing Richard this evening, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So 132 Maple Street. Do we have anybody on for 132 Maple? Or is it just us to discuss it?
I think I saw Gary.
Yeah, Gary's on. So hold on, let's unmute Gary.
And Bill Ornberger? Okay.
Hey, Frank, can you hear us?
We can.
Okay. So before Bill starts, will you just let me know what I came in on the tail end. Are you not hearing the Peggotty Beach Road matter tonight?
That's correct.
Okay. Anything? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
So 132 Maple, do we have Gary or Bill?
Yep. Here.
Okay, so at this point, I think we have all the information. Is there anything that anybody needs to add or question? Want to just start with commission members?
Sure.
So Richard's not here. Doug?
I'm just paging through these. It looks like I'm trying to remember when our last meeting, we were all very close. And I'm trying to remember what additions had to be made to the plans then. But I think if I remember at the end of last meeting, I didn't have any more questions as it was. So I think I'm good with this.
Okay.
Unless you can remind me of some particular thing we're supposed to be looking for at this point.
No.
I don't think so. I
don't think so either.
We've gotten everything sort of ironed out, the crossings.
Yeah, I see the additional pipes on the plan here.
It seemed like what I saw go back and forth, our consultants were satisfied with the information. Penny, do you have anything?
Nope, I'm happy.
Okay. Jen?
I think I'm good.
Okay. Andy?
I'm good at this point.
Okay. Brendan?
I'm good.
Okay. Either Gary or Bill, do you want to add anything to?
No, this is Bill. Go, Gary.
Yeah, I think at this point, Frank, I think we pretty much have addressed, and we've all come to an agreement with both the consultants, both Art Allen and Janet. So I think we've pretty much come down to where all of the issues that were raised originally have all been addressed. So as far as I'm concerned, it's, we're pretty much, we are at a completion point where I think the next step is for the commission.
Okay. Amy?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. Does somebody want to make a motion to close this?
Does Bill want to say anything, Frank?
Yeah, what I just wanted to ask, and I understand that you're going to close the meeting. If it was all possible, I was wondering if the board could vote this pending. I'm assuming that the decision is that going to be signed at next meeting, Amy?
Yeah, that would be how we do this one.
Yeah. So if it was all possible to vote, then I know it'd be great comfort and appreciation from Joe and Christine Pants, who've had not relating this, but outside of this very difficult time this past month or two. I think it would be great to let them know that they can progress towards building their barn.
Okay. I think we're there. So I've got a motion to close.
I make a motion to close.
And a second.
Second, Doug.
Doug. Okay. All in favor? Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
And Brendan?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll have the orders for the next
Meeting.
meeting. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Frank, could I ask a question? This is Bill Arnberger.
Yes, Bill.
Is it possible, because we haven't voted this, to actually vote this subject to standard conditions for review by the commission at the next meeting?
Do we have anything that's outstanding that we can't do that? I mean, usually we just vote.
Well, so, I mean, there's going to be some special conditions. So it's not going to be just subject to standard conditions. There's going to be our normal special conditions on projects that are crossings like this. So
There shouldn't be any surprises, right, Amy? It'll all be stuff that we discussed at the last meeting.
Right. Well, although we roll in, things like the O&M plan and, like maintenance requirements, that type of thing.
Yeah, to keep the pipes clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Replication monitoring. They're pretty standard.
Yeah.
Probably quite similar to the 781st Parish Road orders.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was the same sort of thing where it was a driveway crossing project. So I would say that I'll probably take that as a role model, and I don't think that was, I don't think everybody loved those orders, but that was the gist of it. That you need to do the replication and do the crossing in accordance with the plans. So.
Well, I think that you can tell your client, with Gary, that looks like that we're voted to close. There's been no objection to this. The orders will be written up and distributed to the members so they can review them, and we'll have them for the next meeting.
Right, and to the extent that to be discussed among members, that's your opportunity at the next hearing to do that. Generally, what we do is we distribute the orders to the members, they review, comment, and then vote at the next meeting.
Could I ask, Bill Armberg, could I ask that, Amy, when the order, the proposed order and conditions, and I know obviously subject to change by members at the meeting, could I get a copy of this to review it with Gary in advance so that
Sure.
if there are any questions, we could address those with you prior to the meeting, just to let you know?
I don't think that's a problem. Okay. That's a yes, Bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we're on to
Oh, yeah.
49 Collier Road. All right, this is a new one. On October 19th, 2020, 5:15 p.m. the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Edward Johnson to raise and rebuild a single-family dwelling at location 49 Collier Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. Good evening. Looks like we have Ross Engineering.
I don't know.
Oh,
Are they
Frank?
there?
Frank?
Yes, Paul.
This is Paul. All right. Thank you.
Got you.
This project at 49 Collier Road is a raise and rebuild of an existing single-family dwelling. For the commission's information, prior to filing with the commission, we had 3 meetings with the North River Commission in which they approved the proposed dwelling. The maximum height is only 35 feet from the finished grade on the riverside to the peak of the roof. The footprint of the proposed house is slightly smaller from left to right. It's about 8 feet further in depth than the existing one. The other thing we did prior to filing with the North River Commission and the Conservation Commission, we spoke to the building department, and after our survey, we indicated that the proposed house would not be in the velocity zone. It's shown on the plan right along that heavy black line, which is labeled CB1 through CB3. That's the coastal bank. You can see the velocity zone follows that line. The proposed house is about 8 or 9 feet above that as you go closer to the street. So for that reason, the proposed dwelling will be placed on a reinforced concrete foundation with flood vents, all of which meets the FEMA construction foundation plans and the state building code. With respect to the work on the ocean side of the house, there's an existing concrete slab deck, which is supported on a single pier. That's in the, as you look at the plan, that'd be the left rear corner of the property, adjacent to house number 53. It's proposed to remove that entire structure and install some bank run gravel in that area. And on the water side of that, Stan Humphreys, who's the coastal geologist working on the project with us as well. Stan could not be present this evening. What we've done is the plan you're looking at, I believe, is a revised plan from October 15th. Stan had us regrade that area to more or less comply with some of the impacts that Rebecca Haney from CZM brought up during her site walk with Amy a few weeks back. That hollow where that concrete deck is, the ground's around elevation 11. What we're proposing to do is put bank run gravel in above the coastal dune, which is that heavy dashed line. It's labeled CD3, 4, 5, and 6. That's the coastal dune line that was established on the ground by Stan Humphreys. By removing the deck and placing the gravel fill in there, that fill will go up against the existing retaining wall that's on the property of number 53. That's a concrete block wall, which is slightly leaning. The fill will help stabilize that wall and prevent any further erosion of it. On the plan I'm referring to, Stan has also proposed a small depression in the area of that coastal dune. It is sloped from elevation 9. I'm sorry, it is sloped from elevation 11 down to 9, and then back up to 10 and elevation 11 on the water side. By doing that, that'll take away any potential harm that floodwaters could do to the abutting property 53. There's some shrubbery on the north side of the lot that would protect the properties from any serious flood damage. They're pretty well established and they're very healthy. Those are going to remain. One of Rebecca Haney's comments was she was concerned about the accuracy and the location of the coastal dune. And in response to her comment, Stan prepared and I submitted to you 2 separate photographs. They're 8.5 by 11. And what it shows is the geological makeup of the area, and it also shows the soils map in that area, both of which confirm the location of his coastal dune as being accurate. And for that reason, we haven't made any changes to our plan. We also show the 2 coastal banks on the property. There's a diagram in the upper right-hand side that demonstrates how that was established. It's essentially based upon the slope of the land. There's a coastal bank at the water side of the house where the open deck is, and there's a coastal bank going through the middle of the house as well. It follows elevation 16. We're proposing a pervious pavement driveway up at the street area, so there wouldn't be any increase in the amount of runoff coming from the site. The impervious area has an increase of less than 25%, but where we're going to put the pervious pavement in is an added benefit to keep water from going into the street. It also helps in snow melt. It reduces the use for salt or sand on the pavement as well in the wintertime. I think there's also an existing shed which abuts that concrete slab. The shed is going to be raised and removed as well. I think with that, I'll end and answer any questions that the members may have. Nick, I lost my sound.
Muted.
There it
Doug,
is.
Doug, do you want to start, or Penny and I were out there? I don't know whether you want.
To start with, I just have one question for Paul. It looks like even though, if I'm reading this right, even though you're increasing the size of the house, you're actually decreasing the amount of impervious area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that because of the pervious driveway and?
Yes.
Okay. And this is, I'm looking at the top of Coastal Bank is always a little confusing. So that's you chasing that 4-to-1 contour up. That's why it goes all the way up to almost to the front of the house there.
Yeah, there's actually two of them. The coastal dune that you saw out there, all that rubble, that wasn't there a few years ago. There's a large stone revetment in front of the property. This, which ends at the southerly property line of this lot. That revetment was breached in the storm about 1.5 years ago. There were repairs to it. We've been told that the town and the state are talking about removing that and possibly replacing it further inland. That cobble you saw on the ground out there, was not there. That's a result of the breaching. But we have no plans to remove that. That's going to stay in place. I thought I'd point that out. But.
Okay. And those coir logs, those are those. They're like wrapped up, and there's vegetation that grows on those and everything. Yeah. Okay.
There's some filter fabric behind it as well to hold a fill in behind it, so nothing erodes behind it.
And do those require a lot of watering before they take?
Well, the logs come wrapped.
Yeah.
I believe they take some watering, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I was just curious if that is something that would look to take yet this season, or if it's like, do you have an idea when construction would start on this?
When construction? This is our last stop. We as I said, we've been to North River. And conservation are the only, is the last permit they need before they file for a building permit. I'm assuming they start in the winter with the demolition of the house, and weather permitting, they pour the foundation. Okay. I'm not sure of the timing of doing the work down below. Well, my guess is that they take the deck out in the shed the same time as the house goes, and perhaps bring in the fill material that Stan's proposing prior to the house being built. On the right side of the house, we are pushing the existing house. I'm sorry, the proposed house on the right side of the lot, as you look at it from the street, is about 3 feet in from the property line. So there'd be ample room to get equipment down there if they were to do that at a later date. But
okay.
The owners at the time were the contract purchasers. They've since purchased the property in the last month or so. So they are now the owners, and they are anxious to start work, but that'd be the first part of construction, to raise the house and the deck and the shed, maybe bring in some of that gravel fill. It'd be easier to do it before the foundation went in. So. Yeah,
and and part of this, for my own understanding, because stabilizing the slope is what I was getting around to. I didn't know. Yeah. Though I'm just not. I know what those log fills are, but I've never obviously been involved in a project that watched them go in. So I just didn't know when those had to go in. But I'll stop asking questions now and go on to someone else.
Okay, thanks. Penny?
Okay, I have a lot of questions. First and foremost, I'm not crazy that the house is 12 feet closer to the coastal bank than the existing house. That's number one. Number two, the deck looks like it's coming out over the coastal bank and is probably in the V zone. And I don't like the concrete slab for the hot tub. And I personally would much rather see a foundation like the house, 2 houses south of here, where they put the house on pilings and just had the foundation, solid foundation on the street side. I'm not crazy about a complete foundation going in, especially you're coming so close to the coastal bank. Oh, and I wish that that nice tree on the south side of the backyard, that does not show on this plan. So I hope you're not going to remove it, because it's got some nice big roots that are holding everything in place. The other thing is, when you get over the deck, there's that dip in the soil. Do they plan on filling that, Paul? Or are they going to leave that dip the way it is, so to hold water when we get a storm?
You're saying the dip where the concrete deck is right now?
I'm saying a dip at the back of the house, the existing house.
Yeah.
Okay, you come out from there, and at the end of the yard, there's a gully-like that Mother Nature, I'm assuming, has made. Now, are you going to fill that, or are you going to leave that? Because to me, a minor storm, that's a good water storage place. A major storm, it doesn't matter. It's just going to all come in and fill that up quick.
Okay. Can I respond to that while we're on that topic?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, please.
Okay. The Jen or Amy, can you put the other plan up? Okay. Penny, where that concrete deck is, there's like a hollow below it. That deck sits on one pier, which is going. The plan is to fill that in and bring the fill up to elevation 11 and bring it over to that retaining wall of the neighbor to stabilize it. If you look closely at that wall, that's made out of concrete block. It doesn't seem to have reinforcing in it. It's got a slight leaning to it. Placing the fill up against it will do 2 things. It'll take away any harmful effects that flooding would have in that area. You know, if there was any velocity to the water, it'll also help to hold that wall up so it doesn't collapse and start to erode further toward the house at number 53, the abutting property. What Stan is proposing in the middle of the house in the back on the water side is a depression where he goes from elevation 11 at the stairs down to elevation 9, and then he comes back up in the area of the coastal dune to elevation 10.
Yeah.
And then he brings it up to elevation 11. And what he's doing is creating a pocket in there. So if any water does get into there, it won't have a negative impact on any of the abutters. That was one of the comments from Rebecca Haney, and that's how Stan addressed that comment subsequent to her site walk with Amy. And that revision is one of the revisions on the plan we made last week.
Paul, just one thing. The whole length of the house, okay, on the ocean side, there's already a good sized depression, and it's more than 2 feet deep. The whole length, that's what I was talking about. I understand on the side that you were going to put the gravel in where that concrete thing is now. But the whole length of the house, when you get to the end of the grass area, there is a depression that goes the whole length of the property. And that's what I'm asking. Are you going to fill that or leave that? Because it's more than 2 feet deep now.
Well, the plan is to keep it, but also enhance it by grading it so it's better defined. And Stan did that based upon the comments from.
It's very defined right now, but okay. We'll see.
Can I comment?
Yeah, grading shows it defined as well. What he did was to take that low depression area from the southerly side of the property and put it in the middle of our lot. So it's entirely, within our lot. So any water coming in from the ocean is going to go to the middle of the lot as opposed to the south side of it up against number 53. mean, those contours we show on the plan haven't changed. It's from the coastal dune, that's elevation 9. And from there, it actually rises to 10. And it goes up to 11. Then it starts to drop back down 10, 9, and 8 as you go toward the revetment. The lower part of this lot is also an area where people walk to go out to the spit. They come down from 2 houses north of the site, and then they walk along the that path area, if you will, along the dune, and they go out to the spit. Also, to answer your question about the house being on piles versus the reinforced concrete foundation, that's one of the reasons that we went to Neil Duggan and Bob Vogel from day one to ask them if there's any reason why we couldn't put it on a reinforced concrete foundation. The house itself, if you look at the plan where it says proposed open deck and stairs at the rear of the house, the rear line of the house is just above that. You'll see a number of 12x2. That's an elevation of 12.2. That back line there is a rear line of the concrete foundation, which is about, I'm guessing it's about 8 or 10 feet uphill of the velocity zone. We purposely put the house as far uphill as we could. We were using the average setback of 20.7 feet for the house. That allowed us to pull it closer to the street by about, just over 9 feet from where it would normally be. That lower portion of the house where it says open deck and stairs, that's just ground. There's no pavement in there. And the plan the plan you just had shows the hot tub in that area as well, which is outside the velocity zone. That hot tub just sits on the ground.
Well, I don't
Amy,
like it.
Penny, can Amy jump in here for a second?
Sure she can. Please.
And the reason we're putting that other plan up, Paul, is it's kind of hard to see on your plan what's existing and what's proposed. So we highlined proposed changes, so it's a little easier for the members to see that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, right? So I just wanted to clear up the resource areas. So I believe that we agree with Stan in that there's coastal dune and coastal bank on the site. That Penny's talking about is where the toe of the coastal dune is meeting the toe of the bank.
You're fading in and out, Amy.
Okay, sorry. Could you hear me at all? Do I need to repeat myself?
That's better.
Anyway, so that gully, Penny, you were speaking of, that's where the toe of the, approximately where the toe of the coastal dune is meeting the toe of the bank.
Right.
Forming that gully. And as I think one of the questions is so we know that these coastal resource areas migrate, right? So they move, shift, and migrate with, that's what they're supposed to do. So the cobble dune is, in fact, it's in a constant state of movement. I don't know. So this plan proposes to, it looks like, alter that area and I guess, as Paul says, shape it. So I'm not sure that I don't know. I guess that's one of the things we're reviewing, and whether or not that's something that you want to do, because by filling it, is it going to actually increase the channelization of flow so that the water comes in? Because I mean, the water comes in. On the other side of the dune, we were there at a high tide cycle, and it was filled right up in between where the revetment is and the dune. I mean, so it clearly gets water on an average high cycle. And I know that the time I had been out there before, I met Mr. Brown out there, and he was indicating that it was a small storm and that water had definitely splashed up over and into that void. So it definitely does fill a function for, storm prevention and flood control. And so I do think that altering the bank and the dune may have impact on these flows and of the movement of the material and how it could impact the neighbors. And so I think this
Amy,
is also pointed out.
I think you're cutting in and out a lot.
I was able to hear that last.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyways, I think that that's one of the things that we need to thoroughly evaluate. So that's it for now. How about that?
Okay. I'm going to keep going on commission members for a minute, and then Paul, you'll have a chance to talk. Jen?
I don't have anything to say that hasn't already been said by Amy or Penny.
Okay, thank you. Andy?
Yeah, same for me.
Okay, Brendan?
I have nothing new to add at this
Okay.
time.
Doug or Penny, you have anything else you want to comment on?
Well, I really don't like that foundation, Frank. I love the one two houses south. It does the trick. And the water can come in. I don't know. I don't like it at all.
I have a couple more comments about
Okay.
with respect to that. So I did confer with the building inspector about what had been proposed as far as the foundation showing just flood vents not being elevated on free flow piles. And, so with the thought that, or not the thought, but if the deck is in the velocity zone, then the entire house should be compliant with velocity zone standard.
I thought so.
Which would be 2 feet above base flood elevation and definitely no living space in the basement. I mean, there are ways that people get around that by detaching the deck, is one that Bob had pointed out. So that is an option. I mean, what we kind of went around and came back to kind of what Penny had suggested, which this might be a good one where since part of the site definitely goes into the X zone, so there's a transition from velocity into A into X, that, solid foundation up by Collier Road, maybe transitioning into open piles in the, as you get seaward. And then just reiterating channelization of flow. I mean, because storms are going to roll through this area. And so one of our, things that we're tasked with is making sure that this project does not have impacts on other properties. So,
okay.
That's it.
All right, Paul?
Okay, thank you, Frank. Just to respond to Amy's comment, as I mentioned earlier, we spoke to Bob and Neil about the placement of the foundation in relationship to the velocity zone. It's clearly above the velocity zone, and for that reason, it's on a reinforced concrete foundation. The house the house you're referring to, I think 2 houses away, that house was in the velocity zone. We did the work on that. Because of that, it was required to be in the on piles, but this is not the case here. It is a FEMA compliant foundation. I understand the sentiment of Penny and Amy about putting it on piles, but the applicant has chosen to construct the foundation in accordance with the FEMA construction standards that apply today. The elevation of that house is above the required elevation in the state building code. With respect to the coastal dune down below and the filling we're doing, Stan reviewed this plan after he got the review comments from Rebecca Haney, and that's why we submitted the revised plan in October. He clearly stands by his delineation of the coastal dune, and as Rebecca suggested, was that he submit some supporting information, which he did. Those are the 2 8.5 by 11 color drawings I submitted last week that shows the soil makeup and also the geology of that area. Again, that rubble you see is only there because of the breach in the coastal dune. We didn't see it on the other house lots to the north of it because there was no breach there. So I believe the way this has been regraded, it does allow the water to come in. The ground elevation down around that coastal dune is around elevation 9. The flood zone there, the AE zone is elevation 16. So if the water were to rise, it'd be under about 5 or 6 feet of water. The stone revetment out front is, I believe that's at elevation 14, which is about 2 feet below the velocity zone. So any wave impact should be mitigated as opposed to having no revetment there. And it's my understanding that there's plans to rebuild that as well, and probably build it higher, which would be a much needed improvement in this part of Third Cliff. So other than that, we have no proposed changes on the plan. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I got a few questions for you.
Right.
What's the required flood elevation in that location?
What's the flood elevation?
Yes, what's the flood elevation there?
The 16.
There's a VE zone of 17 and the AE zone is 16.
Okay. And right now the basement floor is at 12?
It's 12.7.
Okay. So that's well below the flood elevation. So there's nothing going in that basement. Or no living space. No living space, no mechanicals.
No, everything's up top. That's a lower level, Frank. And under the FEMA regulations, if you're in an AE zone, you can have a slab below the flood elevation with flood vents. Mm-hmm. And as long as that slab is at or above the ground around it, FEMA does, for insurance purposes, FEMA does not consider that a lower level. If it were a lower level, insurance rates would be much higher. We've encountered that on several raise and rebuilds in Scituate.
So Paul, what would you consider the grade there? Is it at Collier, or is it at the back of the house, or in the middle?
Grade for what purpose?
For calculating, I understand it's a walkout basement, but the grade changes substantially on that lot from the street side to the ocean.
Right. Up at the front of the house, the contour is around 19.
Right.
18 to 19. And the basement floor is 12.7. It's about 6 feet lower. And the first floor of the house, is the first floor of the house is going to be 22, elevation 22, which is 6 feet above base flood. Under the building code, it'd have to be 18. Mm-hmm. In this case, it's 22. The reason for that is because they can, the street elevation is at 19. So the first floor is 3 feet above the street.
So you're going to have flood vents, and then you're going to have that space below the house that is just storage?
I believe so.
All right. Paul, why would the commission want to permit a structure going closer to the setback for a coastal bank? We have a requirement that's the setback, and I realize you have a grandfathered structure. So why would we want to push that closer to that?
Why would you want to push it closer to?
Why would we want to permit a structure that's closer to the coastal bank than we normally would approve?
Well, for one thing, it meets your performance standards for a number of reasons. The coastal bank hasn't changed. I think the only thing that's changed on this site is the existence of that coastal dune where it is now because of a breach in the stone revetment.
But you're proposing to move this structure closer to the coastal bank
12 feet.
by 12 feet.
Right.
What sort of mitigation are you proposing to do that, Paul?
Well, we're going to get rid of that depression on the southerly corner of that lot.
I'm not sure that's a gain.
Well, it is from a storm prevention point of view. And I say that having spoken to Stan, and also it's taken into account comments from Rebecca Haney after her site walk. The other thing is that the coastal bank serves one of two functions. It either provides sediment to the beach below, which it doesn't do in this case. The other thing a coastal bank can do is to act as a storm prevention for a vertical, it acts as a vertical buffer to wave action. The waves would not be hitting this portion of the coastal bank at a point where they do any serious damage. The reason I say that is because the top of that revetment is 14 and the velocity zone is 17. That rubble at the coastal dune, having spoken to Stan, is going to break some of the wave action as well, even though it's below the water. But that coastal bank, it doesn't supply sediment to the beach, and because of the man-made structures there, it's really the structures that are acting as a vertical buffer to anything on the uphill side of that coastal dune. The coastal bank. I mean, putting that foundation there isn't going to cause any damage to the land uphill of that. Well, because the second coastal bank ends up at elevation 16, which goes through the middle of the house.
So when we have a flood situation in that location,
right?
That right now that wall is in the existing house is 12 feet back from what you're proposing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you bring that wall 12 feet forward, that means that water is going to hit that much earlier, and there's less area on that lot. I realize there's flood vents and water can go in there, but I don't know. I just don't see this.
But the water you're talking about, Frank, is water rising as opposed to waves hitting it, because the house is not in the velocity zone. In the AE zone, the water would slowly rise up to that elevation of 16, and it'd go in and out of the foundation. But the flood water itself wouldn't be causing the damage that you would see in a velocity zone where you have no advantage of having the revetment in front of it or any other foreshore protection to mitigate the impact of the velocity of the waves. That's not the case here. Placing this house where it isn't going to have an impact on the coastal bank.
Hmm.
I mean, there's other
and the reason for the fill on that side against the wall is because right now that concrete structure is probably holding that wall up, and you're proposing to remove that, which is a positive thing.
Actually, the concrete structure is not attached to the wall. There's a small separation, but if you look at the wall, you can see it's leaning. Mm-hmm. There's I have some aerial photographs that show. The aerial photographs I have show that the houses in this area are actually much closer to the water than this house, even in the proposed condition. Some of them have foreshore protection and some don't. Again, they don't seem to have any negative impact on the coastal banks because, again, the banks don't supply sediment to any beach area below, and the coastal bank isn't acting as a vertical buffer to storm damage because of the man-made interference, which is mainly walls, revetments, and existing structures in that area.
Okay. Do we have anybody that wants to put their hand up for this? Do we have any interested
parties?
Yeah, so go to participants and raise your hand if you want to participate.
No?
Seeing none.
All right. Amy, is any of this, we've discussed whether this is going to get reviewed at all? Are we?
We have talked about whether we should go for a peer review on this. I mean, I think at a minimum that each and every commissioner should go to this site. Perhaps we should even meet the engineer and consultant on site so we can walk through how we're going to alter the resource areas as far as the coastal dune and the coastal bank goes. It will become clear on site. I think these plans are going on.
Well, I wouldn't object to that. It would be nice to have either Paul or Stan show us where they're proposing to add fill. It's a little bit difficult to see here. Do we have a foundation plan, Paul?
The proposed foundation plan that we have, but it's for a solid foundation.
I think we submitted one with the application. I can check.
All right.
It's progress plan, but I told the structural engineer not to finalize because I think that this is a significant thing that we should try to work through, whether at least a portion of this proposed structure, if it's going to protrude further seaward, should be on pilings as it's, I mean, are you moving everything out of the velocity zone? Is that what you were saying, Paul?
There's no structure in the velocity zone now, or there's nothing proposed in the velocity zone. I'm sorry.
There's no deck in the velocity zone.
No, I take it back. That existing concrete deck you saw, that's in the velocity zone. That's going, and the shed that's there, that's just above. That shed's out just outside the velocity zone. That's going as well. So those two structures on the right side of the lot will be gone.
But the stairs and the deck that are shown here are in the velocity zone, aren't they?
That open deck you see is off the first and second floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the velocity zone.
And the stairs are in the velocity zone.
Yes.
And the hot tub.
In the hot. Yeah.
The slab for the hot tub is split in the V zone.
That's in the. I think we moved that over to the right. Or I'm sorry. As you look at the house from the water, I believe that got moved over on the revised plan to the right side of the house. We show that on the revised plan.
The one we're looking at right now is not the current plan.
Well, the one that's a July 20th, 2020 date on the NOI plan. There's another plan we submitted last week. It's got a revision date on it of October 15th. You had that up on the screen earlier.
We put the colored one up.
All right. We've got a few other hearings tonight. Paul, why don't we, I think Amy's got a good recommendation there. If we can set up a meeting to
set a meeting up, and I'll talk to Stan. He's out of state right now.
Okay.
And make sure he can be there.
All right. So how much time do we need?
Well, can we continue it for 2 weeks and meet with him in the meantime?
We could try.
All right.
Want to get a motion to continue this?
I don't know what the date would be. I don't have the calendar.
11/3.
I make a motion to continue.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
That's Tuesday.
No. Sorry, 11/2.
I make a motion to continue 49 Collier Road to November 2nd.
We have a second?
Second, Doug.
That's Doug. All in favor? Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
What are we on to? 16 Mitchell Ave?
Yeah. I don't know if the surf side.
On October 19th, 2020 at 5:15 p.m. the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Michael Walsh to construct an addition to a dwelling at location 16 Mitchell Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access a virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted at the town website. Okay. This is Morse Engineering.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this is Greg Morse.
Hey, Greg.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Again, for the record, Greg Morse. I'm a registered engineer with Morse Engineering. I'm representing the property owner and applicant, Michael Walsh. This is a notice of intent for the addition to the Walsh residence at 16 Mitchell Ave. Looking at the plan here, Mitchell Ave is at the bottom of the page. The property line is in the dark black line. The existing house is kind of centrally located on the lot. The lot itself is 18,256 square feet. As you'll see, it's developed with the house, a driveway, a garage, a shed, in lawn areas. There are no vegetated wetlands of any kind on this property or within 100 feet of it. However, the property is located in the FEMA floodplain. The front portion of the property is zone AE at elevation 12, while the house is located in AE at elevation 16. The proposal here is to construct an addition. Looking at the computer screen, the addition is the bold rectangle on the right-hand side of the house. It's 18 feet by 36 feet. We've proposed flood vents on all four sides of the addition, and it would be constructed on a crawl space. The first floor elevation would match the existing first floor elevation, which is non-FEMA compliant. However, this addition would not trigger full compliance, as the value of this compared to the overall value of the house is not above 25%. I turn it over to you. DEP had no comments on this.
No.
Okay. Doug?
Frank, I believe I might have been involved on this project in helping determine the property lines, so I'm going to recuse myself from this one.
Okay. Penny?
No, I don't see any problems that I need answered. Thank you.
Jen? This is your hood.
It is. No, I don't think that there's anything. It doesn't look like there's no trees in that area either, so they're not having to do any additional clearing or anything. So it's kind of just pure lawn right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Andy?
No questions right now.
Brendan?
Yeah, no questions at this time.
Amy?
Everyone is so loud.
We'll
anyways,
whisper.
Oh my God. So I really don't have much to say. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Looks compliant. I agree that the state didn't have any comments.
Okay.
Right.
I don't have any either. To me, it looks like it. Penny, did you have something you wanted to ask?
No. Nope. I'm all set. Thank you.
Do we, there's no need for any erosion control or anything on this?
No, I don't believe there is. I should have asked, or I should have mentioned it earlier. The addition is in an area that's existing lawn area. We're not proposing any alteration on the property outside of the addition. There's no real change in grade. There's no significant, changes to the lot as it sits. So no, there's really no need for erosion control. There's nothing for it to road off to, and the remainder of the lot is all vegetated with lawn.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience?
No?
I don't think so.
I'll make a motion to close then.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Andy.
Is it Jen or Andy?
Andy can have it.
Okay. All right. We have motion and a second. So all in favor. Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank? Yes. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg. Now we're on to 17 Old Farm. On October 19th, 2020, at 5:15 p.m., the Town Hall Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Aldana Hamill to raise and rebuild a single-family dwelling location at 17 Old Farm Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information, access, virtual meetings available on the agenda posted at the town website. So we have an engineer.
Yep.
Brendan.
Brendan Sullivan with Kevin R. Consulting.
Hey, Brendan.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So, geez, I did see the plan just up there for a second. This is a single-family home at the end of Old Farm Road. Old Farm Road's a dead end off of the northerly end of Hatherley Street. It's off. It butts up to
Squashkit.
Muskosket. So we're basically taking the existing footprint, existing one-story footprint, tearing that down, and putting up basically a three-story house with a deck on the easterly and northerly side. The lot is up against Muskoshka Pond. We have a BBW. We have a floodplain, elevation AE 13 out on the pond side, and then most of the rest of the lot is in elevation AE 11. The existing first floor is about elevation 11.2. The proposed house, the first floor, I mean, there'll be no living space in this. This is the first floor in the garage. The storage will be at about elevation 8.5. That'll be on a concrete slab. The living space will be up at elevation 18.5. We're proposing a new driveway, new access to the front. We're shifting the driveway off the property line a little bit, reorientating that, taking down an existing shed that's just outside the 50-foot buffer. And we have a silk fence encompassing just about the entire project, except for the roadside. The lot is fairly flat. It slopes basically from the house back to the pond and from the house back towards the street. The existing house is on town sewer and water. And I think that's about it. We have filed with zoning. We're on the zoning for meeting in November.
Okay. You're saying you have a ZBA meeting for this in November?
Yes. Yep. For the square footage increase of the gross floor area.
Got it. Okay. Doug?
Well, Brendan, see, Amy, we didn't actually get this plan in our set, right?
I just got a set of architecturals. I didn't see the site plan.
I just saw this architecturals as well too. So I'm just looking at this, but this is, Brendan, this is a AE zone elevation 11, and there's.
Yes.
Okay. So my, the note that I can read on the lower left says the elevations on this plan are an assumed datum. Is that just an incorrect note, or how are we dating this?
That was an incorrect note. Initially, they were assumed, and we had to go back out there and verify. We got a good datum off of the town sewer plans. So it is on NAVD 88. Sorry about that.
Okay, so there's a direct relationship to that and the flood zone then. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And the first floor will have flood vents as well.
Okay. And there's an existing house there now?
Yes, there is.
And that is all the first floor elevation of that, is that the 11.2? And that you're going to match that with the new house?
No, we are going to, basically tear down what's there. And we're going to put a garage in the first floor at about elevation 8.5. And then that's going to, in the first floor is going to be storage in the garage. And then there's going to be access to the second floor, which will be the first floor, basically, of living space. And that'll be 18.5.
So that living space on the architectural, that's all up above. I got it now. Okay, so that's, that beautiful wraparound porch that shows on that architectural plan. That's all the living space out there, and that's why they're doing that. Okay.
Right. Yep.
And then the first floor, though, still has flood vents.
Yes, that first floor.
Got it.
I hate to call it the first floor. It's not living space, but that can only be for storage and access.
Gotcha. All right. That all makes sense out of that then. Okay. All right, thanks. I think that'll shut me up for a minute.
Thanks.
Penny?
Yeah, Brendan, so I'm to assume the house that's there now is the same size as this is going in the same footprint?
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of going to be like, there's another one down there that they have second and third floor living.
I'm sorry, you asking me or telling me?
Oh, well, I'm just kind of making the comment that,
okay.
so I can visually see. So,
you want my opinion on that?
No, nobody asked you, Frankie. Okay, I just wanted to know if it was the same size, the same footprint. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jen?
Yeah, there's a lot here. I think one of my initial questions is resolved in the sense that it's the same. I was initially concerned that our impervious was going up since you said you had to go in front of zoning, but if the house is following the same footprint and the driveway's a little bit bigger, we're not concerned about that. Is that correct?
Are you talking to me or the board?
You.
So yeah, the driveway is increased a little bit. We are in the same footprint.
Okay.
We're going to zoning for because it's a pre-existing non-conforming lot, and we are, even though the building setbacks were all conforming building setback wise, because we're increasing the gross floor area of the house on a non-conforming lot, we have to go to zoning. So it has nothing to do with coverage.
Okay.
Right, and I think the increase in impervious coverage isn't significant enough to trigger the stormwater bylaw.
Yeah, it's just, it's tricky to feel that off the bat with the way the plan looks with the decks and the way it all kind of shakes out.
Well, I think the shed, getting rid of the shed's good.
Is that proposed to remove that?
Yes,
yeah, see it now.
In the narrative, we have the increase is 14%.
Okay.
Of impervious.
It's good.
Okay.
I think I'm good, Frank.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, my questions have been covered.
Okay. Brendan?
I have nothing more to add.
Okay. Amy?
I have a few things. So typically on a new build, or even a raise rebuild in the same footprint. We would look for dry wells for roof runoff if we could get them. And just of note, Brendan did say silt fence, but the plan calls out a silt sock. And also for construction of a house, we usually like to have a construction pad at the driveway location while it's all happening to cut down on sediment leaving the site. But other, I mean, there's no DEP comments because there's no DEP number. So I don't know, I think that we should maybe talk about whether we need a revised plan and then close, or you want to close with this plan subject to a revised plan and DEP number. I mean, you've got some options here. I don't know what you decide.
So what are your thoughts on that, Brendan, in terms of?
Well, certainly. I mean, I, you know, if you wanted to close contingent upon, you know, I could certainly add a construction pad and some dry wells in the back. You know, if you wanted to continue it and come back, I don't know if you can close it without a DEP number. If you can, that'd be great. If not, you want to continue it, I can certainly revise the plan, add those details to the plan, and come back at the next meeting.
And how about closing before your ZBA? Do you think you're going to see anything significant?
I don't. We just, like I said, it's there's nothing non-conforming setback wise, so we're just increasing the gross floor area. Really just doubling it because we're just going up 2 stories. You know, with the unfinished basement, so we're really just doubling the floor area, which you know, I like to think is minimal, but I would have no problem closing with you know, before we go to zoning.
When the and you're saying that the increase in impervious surfaces is not significant, even with between the driveway. Is there a concrete driveway now, and that's being ripped up? And
yes, it's a bit conk drive, and it comes up about halfway to the house, but it hugs the right hand lot line. So we're going to kind of center it more to the house, and so there's no garage there now, and obviously the driveway is going to go up and meet the garage doors.
Okay. And you think just some infiltrators are sufficient for this?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're elevation 8. I mean, to bury those, you know, we're pretty darn close to the groundwater, but we'll put something in there to help alleviate the runoff.
I mean, I guess I'd look at either that or a paver driveway. I mean, I could go with either because the groundwater is so high there. I'm just really wondering how effective infiltrators would be. I don't know if you want to get any feedback from your client.
Yeah, I could see which way should we want to go, whether we do something in the ground or a pervious, you know, some sort of a pervious driveway.
To me, that would be as effective as infiltrators on that site. But.
Okay.
I think in that neighborhood too, for storm management, we've accepted like the low impact design technique of the swale, the pin swale. If you were going to be doing any grading.
I lost you a little bit there, Amy, so I'm not sure if anybody else heard what you were saying about this normal neighborhood.
Let me try again. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
That's better.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. So another option to consider would be a swale, like a planted swale, maybe with water directed that way, or you could even combine that with a pervious driveway. I mean, you've got options, because I totally agree that if an infiltrator in the groundwater is not going to do much good. So it depends on what the depth of groundwater is. And I'm not sure, Brendan, whether you know, based on your work so far on the site.
Yeah, no, I just know we're close to the coast, and like I said, if you're at elevation 8, you're gonna bury them. You quickly get into 5 and 6, and that's pretty close to high tide. So I'm not sure you'd have your 2 feet of separation. So we could come up with something, some sort of a planted area. Maybe not necessarily a rain garden, but maybe a bit, like you said, a vegetative swale or something that would drain the water, back to the pond.
Okay. All right, well, give that some thought. Why don't we continue this? See, we need a DEP number anyways.
Okay, I make a motion to continue.
Do we think that, excuse me, Penny.
Yeah, no.
Are we okay with just 2 weeks on this one? Or do we want to?
Yeah, we needed the plans for a week before.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have something for you by next Monday.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's all you, Penny.
Okie dokie. I make a motion to continue 17 Old Farm Road to November 2nd.
Second on that?
Second, Doug.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
14 to 16 Old Country Way. On October 19th, 2020, 5:15 p.m. in the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Robert Proctor to raise 2 residential dwellings and build 6 residential units and 2 commercial units at dwelling location 1416 Old Country Way, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. And this is Ross Engineering?
Yes.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Frank.
All right. Why don't you tell us what you're doing?
Okay. Mr. Proctor owns the property shown on the site plan that's on the screen. What he's proposing to do is to raise 2 existing single-family dwellings and construct 4 residential units that are attached. They're shown as units 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the plan. And to the rear of the lot, there's a proposed barn building, which will have 2 rental units above the 2 contractors' bays that'll be at the lower level. For the board's information, we filed this application back in March of this year.
Yeah.
And a few weeks after that, we filed with the planning board for a special permit. The process for the planning board included everything relative to the stormwater bylaw. That process has been completed. So having said that, there's no requirement at this point for the Conservation Commission to review stormwater. The stormwater was reviewed by Janet Bernardo of the Horsley Witten Group. I think she had 4 separate reviews, and we concluded those about a month and a half ago. There is an existing pipe on the property. If you could go to the next sheet, I think that'll show it, and it'll show the buffer zones. While I'm speaking, that's Jen. There are no wetlands on the site.
No.
I'm just waiting for the plan. There we go. Okay, there are no wetlands on the site. The resource areas are actually off-site. As you look at the plan on the property to the right, there's a existing open-ended pipe. The entrance to the pipe is considered the top of an inland bank, which is a resource area. And from there, we show the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zone that do come onto the property. On the left side of the plan over at Old Country Way, there's the outlet of that pipe that runs through the property. There's another head wall where the water outlets. That's also the top of an inland bank. And from there, we show the 50 and 100-foot buffer zone on to the property. That pipe is completely enclosed to the site. It's a 24-inch reinforced concrete pipe. We did put a camera down it to inspect it and also locate it as well. The pipe is virtually flat. That is not considered a resource area under the DEP wetland regulations. I verified that with Greg DeCisa and Brad Holmes as well. Reason being that it's completely enclosed and is buried. There are no changes to the pipe. That's going to stay right exactly where it is. So having said that, this project has been resolved to a buffer zone project for work being done within 100 feet of those, of the end of those two head walls I previously described. To the rear of the property, there's a proposed barn, which will have the 2 apartments above it and 2 contractors' bays. The bays have been reduced from 3 to 2. That's an enclosed structure. We're also capturing the roof runoff and we're putting in that to a subsurface recharge system at the rear of the building. That's shown on the plan as well. Moving over to the left in the other buffer zone, 2 of those proposed units and a small portion of a third one are between 50 and 100 feet of the head wall on the other side of Old Country Way. We're proposing a recharge unit to the rear of that building as well. All of the other work on the site is outside the buffer zone. The change in grade is relatively minor. That's a pretty flat site. It only varies by about 2 feet from the street to the back of the property. The open areas are going to be landscaped. The amount of impervious area has been slightly reduced to 42.3% of the entire site. This project has been reviewed by the zoning board and approved accordingly. And subsequent to that, we filed with the commission and the planning board. As I stated earlier, the planning board is about 99% complete with the project. We did submit some revised architectural plans today. The site plan hasn't changed from what we submitted, I think in August of this year, August or September. So I think with that, I'll end in my presentation and answer any questions the members may have.
Okay.
Frank, do you want to just let me go first on this?
Sure.
I might be able to answer some things. Okay, so for jurisdiction, I'm going to agree that this is the buffer and that the stream is regulatory per the definition of 310 10.5A2A3C, which removes riverfront from the project.
We've lost the audio for Amy.
They can't hear us, Jen.
Here, Amy.
I hear you like way in the background. You know, because I just lost internet. Oh, good. Okay. I don't know where to go for the numbers. My internet crashed. It's reconnecting.
Good old technology.
Give us a minute here.
Oh, Jeff's raised his hand.
Frank, I could have been to the gym and back by now.
That'll be the day.
Wise guys.
I think Barbara has to exercise for both of you.
She does. She looks it too.
We're having a little technical difficulty.
So it's a town's network.
Oh.
I just have no idea. No internet access. Well, I mean, you can hear it through mine, but that's not going to help you talk to it. Well, hold on. Then it'll reboot. I mean, do you want him to go through people? I do. Yeah.
All right. Why don't
The long and the short was I was agreeing.
Okay. So
I was agreeing, and yeah, it's a redevelopment. They can carry on.
So what Amy just said was that she's agreed with most of what Paul's just said with the redevelopment and whatnot. So why don't we move to members for any questions, and then we'll see if this gets resolved. Okay. So Doug.
I don't. It doesn't seem like no, I don't think I have any questions because I was curious about the jurisdictional part of that too, is like if this is being reviewed by the planning board, I'm not sure what our role is beyond those two little ditches. And I don't have any question about the protection there. This isn't in an aquifer protection.
I believe it is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Zone A. That brook does go to the reservoir.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's what's triggering that as a resource area then. So is the planning board reviewing all that too as far as mitigation requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as the drainage, because it's a redevelopment, we had to comply with the design requirements for stormwater that's in a zone A, which we did do, and that's been reviewed by Horsley Witten Group.
Okay. Yeah. If it seems like the peer review is already happening, and so yeah, yeah. Okay. So I mean, I don't see that I would have any questions about that would be beyond all the ones they probably already asked. So I'm good right now.
I just wanted to jump in if you guys can hear me.
I can hear you, Jeff.
Oh, thank you. Just Jeff DeLisi is, I somehow was unable to get off of the unmute button, or the mute button, in order to unmute myself. But I'm here tonight as legal counsel for the property owner with Paul. And I don't have anything to add substantively. It looks like Paul covered it very well. There's, you know, it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
We lost you, Frank.
I see your mouth moving, but that's
Thanks.
it.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll circulate through the members and then get back to you or Paul. So Penny?
Nope. As long as that little stream is safe, I'm happy.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of lines on this drawing, but I think we're good.
Okay. Andy?
All good.
And Brendan?
All good.
So are you able to talk to this, Amy?
It's updating. I think if I hop on there, I could, but.
Do you want to use this?
Here, I'll just go stay.
Crash.
Well, I don't want to use the microphone.
No, I understand. I'm just going to put this on. All
right.
I'm sure you're fine. So we can follow protocol.
the computer picked a fine time to lose internet connection and shut down.
Frank, shouldn't you be disinfecting that microphone?
Thank you to the town for that. Anyway, so what I was saying was that we're agreeing with the jurisdiction in the resource areas for redevelopment, and it's in the process with the planning board. I guess that my only real comment was that I think we should keep it open until we're sure that the planning board drawings are final. And I've heard from Karen that they're meeting in November, so I was going to say continue it to 11/16.
I'm out the way.
That was it.
I didn't quite hear why we should keep it open, Frank.
Because the planning board is still holding hearings on that. Is that correct, Jeff?
So what does it have to do with us? I'm just trying to understand.
Well, if there was anything that would change from what they're doing, I still have a couple questions.
Okay.
So I get that this has been pretty well reviewed by Horsley Witten and the planning board. And we've dealt with these tributary issues before, so I'm assuming that it's correct that because it's in a pipe, it's different than if this were an open brook or something. It would obviously be very different. But we're within 50 feet of that opening, so I'm a little unclear why there still isn't some jurisdiction there. Am I right or wrong?
Well, you do have jurisdiction within the buffer zone to the inland bank. That inland bank runs along the side of the brook until it reaches the end of the pipe. And from there, the pipe is underground and completely sealed. And the same happens down at the other end on the other side of Old Country Way. So what I'm saying is your jurisdiction starts at the entrance and exit of that pipe. And when you put the 50 and 100 foot buffer zone around it, you can see the area that comes within the jurisdiction of the commission under the Wetlands Act.
So within the 50 foot, Paul, what I'm seeing is some grading. It even looks like the infiltrator on the rear of is just on the edge. So it's some grading in the 50 at the rear.
Yeah, there's some minor grading to meet for the infiltrators. You know, it's less than a foot. This side is pretty flat.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is happening on the other end. It's some minor grading. There's two contours there. It's going to be minor grading for the lawn and landscaping area. So.
Okay, and then on the front of it, in the 50 foot buffer, is that lawn?
Yeah, that open area is going to be landscaped.
Okay.
And the only thing that's happening in the 50 foot buffer there is some minor grading to accommodate that recharge system.
Okay.
Also grade the lot out so it's more even.
Paul, is the drainage on the front of the property near the entrance there? Is that tied into a catch basin in Old Country Way? Because also within the 50 is the road itself. So I'm just wondering,
no, all of the runoff is either going to go in those recharge systems, or if you look at the left side of the property, if you look at it from Old Country Way, there's a shallow basin there that'll collect water that'll run off the lawn area. The lawn's relatively flat, but it is sloping to that area, and that'll contain the water. The soils out there were fairly sandy, so that's a shallow depression. It'll be lawn area, which will be mowed, but that'll actually capture water and retain it on site, because under the stormwater bylaw, we can't have an increase in volume leaving the site. So that was one feature that we used to recharge water in addition to the 2 infiltrator recharge systems.
So there's a designated construction staging area in the 50.
And SWIP plan, I believe there is, which is temporary.
Okay. And there's this silt sock, or there's something around the site?
Going around the perimeter. The purpose of the staging area is to control any erosion during construction. That's part of the SWIP plan, which also gets inspected on a weekly basis. And that's reported back to the planning board as well.
I mean, typically, if there was some construction in the 50, we'd look for some mitigation, but there's really no structures or infrastructure in either one of the 50-foot zones. There's a fair amount of building in the 100.
From 50 to 100, yes.
Just, was there an increase or reduction in impervious areas?
There was a slight reduction from, I think, 44.5% down to 43.3%. That was a topic of the zoning board application. The maximum limit in the zone is 20%, but the existing was 44%, and I believe we reduced it to 42.3%. It was a slight reduction.
Okay. So, in terms of being in a water resource area, all that stuff's gets approved by which entity in the town?
Well, in this case, it was the planning board. They took into account that it wasn't a zone A. Horsley Witten did have some consultations with the DEP. That did have an impact on our stormwater design as far as treating the water. There's no permeable pavement on the property, but the treatment and recharge system is in the driveway as you come in from Old Country Way. It's just outside the 100-foot buffer zone. Probably, I'd say over half the impervious area is roof runoff, which is clean water. That's going to be recharged. And the only other water would be from the pavement area, which is going to be, which has a pretty sophisticated treatment and recharge system, which was reviewed by Horsley Witten. I think there were 4 reviews total, and their final review was completed, I think, in early September.
Paul, right now, are there any portions of the existing buildings located within the 50-foot buffer strip, or any portions of impervious areas such as driveway located in the 50-foot buffer strip that are being eliminated?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of impervious area on the site in the form of roofs and a concrete pavement. I think the person who lived there at one time worked for a local concrete company or pipe company, and there's quite a bit of concrete on that site.
Yeah.
Some of it's kind of long.
So, yeah, Jeff, your point is that actually there's some improvement in those areas.
Yes.
Yeah, like I think this project itself is a mitigating project over what is there now. Unfortunately, we can't see. It's not substantial because what's there now isn't substantial. But the point is that we were careful to be, we're actually, I believe, even moving further away from the pipe itself with respect to buildings. Not that really matters, because the pipe is more than adequate to handle, any load, the load over it or near it. It's a very strong pipe, but the point is that, we're moving away from it over what's there now, even though the use of the property overall, is being more intense, obviously, because we have more dwelling units and some retail. It's generally speaking moving away from the pipe.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody, if you have anybody in the audience? Nobody putting any hands up. So the question is, do we continue this until the planning board wraps up their work? Is there a reason to want to do that? Jeff, do you foresee any major, or Paul, any major changes that approving this would?
No, we've really run the gamut with site changes. There have been quite a few revisions. You have in front of you, from a site perspective, what I think is the final site plan. We don't have. I think Paul indicated some numbers before about the reduction in the amount of impervious area from I think it was 45% to 42.5%. Was it, Paul? Or
44.2.3.
Yeah, we don't have any real latitude to create like even like 0.1% more than what we have now. So there's going, we have setbacks that we have to meet. From the standpoint of anything within 50 feet, I can say with 99% certainty there won't be any change. And I'm definitely in the 90% certainty on the site itself. We actually, we considered changing the footprint of the barn building, the rear building, but the design review committee liked the design of that building, and it was a kind of a really neat historic feature. So we tried to kind of maintain that architecture, and as a result, we resisted changing the building, and I don't foresee that that's going to happen now. I think you're looking at the final plan. I think it's a reasonable certainty.
Okay. Yeah. Excuse me, Amy. Can everybody hear Amy?
No.
Yeah, Frank, if you synopsize her question, then we will be able to, but I'm having a hard time.
Try it. Go ahead.
Well, basically, I think once you close it, you're stuck with it closed. And based on conversations with Karen, they're not done with the stormwater, and there could be revisions to the plan set. And since our permit incorporates the stormwater review, which we indeed will rely on Wetlands review, I think it's a good project as a redevelopment. I don't have any comments as far as that goes, but I do think we should leave it open for a couple of weeks till it is vetted and final vet on the plan.
So, Amy, what's your schedule in the month of November? What hearing days do you guys have?
So I was going to suggest November 11th, which is a couple of days after you meet with your file. And then Karen said she's not going to have that either.
So I generally speaking, I'm okay with that because the appeal period on the planning board matter is longer than the appeal period on the Concom matter. So I really don't have any issues. Frank, would you be able to say what Amy said that date was after the planning board hearing?
So for us, it would be the 16th, November 16th, continued to till 11/16.
Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable because I would just ask the board maybe if it's possible to come in, with an order, a draft order that evening.
Yes.
But I see no reason not to do that. That's not going to cause any delay to the project.
Okay, so we're going to agree to come in with a draft order on the 16th.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Great. Okay, can I have a motion to, we didn't have anybody in the audience for this, correct?
No. I make a motion to continue 1416 Old Country Way until November 16th.
And can I get a second?
Second, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. So all in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Poor Penny.
Earlier in the day, maybe more like 4 o'clock if we can, since town meeting is that day.
Did you guys hear that? Because town meeting's the 16th, we might try to meet at like 4 o'clock on the 16th. Okay.
4 o'clock?
Where is town meeting going to be held?
Supposedly in the gym, but we'll see.
Okay. Thank you. All right. 38 Pheasant Hill. On Monday, October 19th, 2020, during the 5:15 meeting at Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Kevin and Ann Callahan for a determination of applicability to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws for activity related to septic replacement at 38 Pheasant Hill Drive, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. And that's Morse Engineering?
Yes. Again, for the record, this is Greg Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering. This is an RDA filed at 38 Pheasant Hill Drive. This is associated with a septic system repair plan. The existing home, as depicted on the plan here, is located kind of in the front middle of the lot. It failed a recent Title V septic inspection. The proposal here is to construct a new Title V compliant system in its place. The wetlands that we have out at the site consist of a bordering vegetated wetland, which is highlighted in blue, kind of on the top piece of the screen here. Off of that in red is the 50-foot buffer, and in green, the 100-foot buffer. The septic system itself is located in the rear yard. It's in an area that's all existing lawn surface. It would be restored as lawn surface when the project is done. The septic system is outside of the 50-foot buffer, and we've proposed an erosion control barrier at the limit of work. This is not a new construction or an increase in flow. It's simply to replace the failed system at the property, which is a 3-bedroom system. I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Greg. Penny? Doug, I'm sorry, Doug.
No questions.
Penny?
No questions. Looks good.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I'm good.
Andy?
No questions.
And Brendan?
I have no questions either.
Amy?
Appears to meet the requirements of -2.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience for this one? Can I get a motion?
I make a motion for a -3.
Did you say a 2 or a 3, Amy? A 2.
Oh, why? Okay, a 2.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second from Jen.
Thank you, Jen. So all in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
So what do we have for business things that we want to wrap up here?
We have orders of condition to accept and minutes.
What do you want to do first, Penny?
They're very quick. I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition for 91 Rebecca Road as written. That was cracks in the piles.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second, Doug.
Thank you. So all in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the orders of condition for one hall at Straight that's a raise and rebuild, as written.
Yeah. Second from someone?
Second.
Who was that?
It's me. I got it just under the wire. That was me. Done.
I could have sworn somebody owed somebody a Coke there, but okay, a second from Doug. So all in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now I make a motion to accept the minutes as written from 9/21.
Do I have a second?
Second, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan.
Yes.
Okay, don't really fall asleep. We're almost done.
That's it, except the chit chat.
I just wanted to let everybody know that the Scituate Troop 7 Boy Scouts did a great job installing the kiosks, and he installed his last one on Sunday despite a huge boulder that everybody had to tug on to get out of there. But we have all the kiosks up, and we have some temporary signage with rules, so we've left everything open, the gates. Troop, go ahead, Penny.
No, I said yay.
And then Troop 7 also had a camp out at Crosby this weekend, which I guess worked out well for them. So happy to see some of these properties getting utilized a little bit. And I think we've got everything approved so we can start the bridge shortly. Waiting to hear back from Nancy on one piece, but I think we're there.
Which she's working on.
Okay.
Yeah, you're on the list. Actually, camping reminds me of a call we got last week about somebody who set up shop out in the Herring Brook railroad easement area, along with like fires and living, like
really
new home type of situation. So we've called Scituate PD in on that matter. Hoping they'll get kicked out. Yeah.
Where were they, Amy?
The call came in from a resident on Martha Lane.
Oh, Martha's Lane. Oh, really? Yeah. Down there?
Yeah, well, visible from that location. So, you know, water views, right? So, why wouldn't you?
Martha's Lane is off of 3A, goes in the back of that would be the old railroad bed.
That's where they were.
Right, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. Okay.
Well, if you have a camper, you know, you can put it anywhere, but the concern.
No, you can't. There's a gate here. There's
a waste going and trash.
The chain.
Yeah.
Well, you're not the only person with a squatter, Penny, I guess.
Oh yeah, my favorite squatter. Yeah.
And then
we got had some letters go out on complaints. One on Stockbridge, I'm thinking of is an after the fact filing that we've requested. No, we get a lot of calls, fast and furious in the office. So many that sometimes it makes your head spin. But yeah, people just do the same things. That's all I can say. Lots of questions. Trees.
They're out there. Well, everybody's bored.
Yeah.
I want to thank Penny for helping me put together the application to DCR for forestry plan. It's the first step. There's a forester, Phil Benjamin, who works with the Wildlands we're looking to have him help us put this application together to DCR, which would hopefully fund a forestry plan. So it's just in early stages, but Penny pulled together that information. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a start.
And then I think I emailed everybody the request from Samantha Woods regarding the defunding of the North River as a scenic. It still has a designation of a scenic protection order, but unfortunately there's no funding to supervise that or protect it. And it's a concern. I heard about this a little while back, and as of right now, it doesn't seem like the tact has been changed. So if anybody has any influence, if they could write something, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think protecting the North River is huge. And it's too bad that this isn't being funded, because there's a whole bunch of things that get done with that, including monitoring it by personnel and watching other towns to make sure there's no issues with development. I think we heard tonight that the North and South River reviewed the property out on Collier and gave them like a maximum height. So there's environmental pieces with this, and there's also visual ones. And it's a shame that realize that there are cutbacks, but it's a shame that it was totally defunded, and at least they wouldn't have some money to monitor this. So encourage you to send a note or make a call or something if you wouldn't mind. That's what I've got.
Yeah, so we'll send a letter in support by Scituate Conservation Commission, and I believe that the Board of Selectmen are also being asked to write in a letter in support of not losing funding.
Can I just ask, is anybody not in favor of that? Great. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything?
I had something. Was tomorrow night on the Selectmen's meeting, I observed that Kyle Boyd, our coastal resource officer, is going to be joining the Zoom call with the professional from CBI Institute, who was in charge of the 50-year vision grant and some of the other coastal grants that are going on. And so I think, they are going to be providing an update on grant status for future grants, and also maybe results of a couple that were done last year. Because I think that we still are awaiting the formal presentation of the Peggotty Beach grant, also the downtown grant, and then potentially even, I don't think that the 50-year vision has been formally presented either. So I don't think they're going to accomplish that in 10 minutes, which is, I believe, the slot, but it might be interesting to tune in to the BOS meeting tomorrow night.
That's a good, we should have asked the applicants for Collier to watch the 50-year vision, see if they really want to put their house that close to the ocean, but
yeah.
it's their call.
The velocity zone is moving in.
So extra kudos to Jen and Amy tonight for the adversity of a little technical glitch, but we seem to have worked through it. There's some echoes in the room.
Well, there was a reason why I didn't want to use the town's Dell, and I guess I cursed myself. I don't know, because literally.
What do you want now, Amy?
Well, the thing completely lost its internet connection, and then like shut down and rebooted up and went, I don't know, and I went on my phone. Now I'm here, so I was able to get back eventually, but.
Oh.
There's not an option to go to my desktop because I don't have a camera on it.
Yeah.
So, and normally I use or a microphone, even though they just did give me a new computer last week, ironically. And I have been using my personal Mac for meetings, but.
You think we were hacked?
I wanted to try to switch over. Maybe. No, I think it's just, I think this Dell is old.
We're too boring to be hacked, Frank.
I think that this thing is a relic, and so it just crashed. And this happens to, like, planning board has had this happen a number of times, but it is kind of embarrassing that it happens mid speech, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you got this through it, so we're good. Anybody else?
Happy Halloween to everyone.
Halloween.
What are you dressing up as, Penny?
What do you think I should dress up as? A witch!